Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Meet the Team. I'm so excited to introduce Matt Hennessey to you today, who is the Sales Manager, Performance East for OrthoLite. Welcome to our show, Matt. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, I've been very excited to interview you for some time now. You have a very interesting background. I know that you have a passion around caretaking our customers and really helping them through the design process. And a large part of that is based on your career highlights. So I thought it might be interesting if we started with that and then went into the role that you have at OrthoLite now as we kind of get into our conversation here today. So maybe tell us a little bit about your background and why it sets you up so perfectly for your role with OrthoLite.
Sure. As it turns out, we're not too far away from my anniversary for about 24 years in the footwear business. So,
wow. Congratulations.
Thanks. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, but yeah, it's fast approaching. August will be that time frame for me. So pretty exciting. But, with OrthoLite, that's been 7 years. And before that, it was all development with brands. So I think what has made my path to where we are now exciting is that, I sat in the chair of the people that I work with now. So in fact, for much longer than I've been a quote unquote sales guy, which I bristle at that title, I guess.
I totally know what you mean. And I mean, there are people, I think, in the design world, you used to be one of them, who might have been just completely averse to being called a salesperson. And I think that's what makes our team so successful at OrthoLite is you really are not traditional salespeople. I see you more as Olivia, your counterpart, called it was a concierge in her world. Maybe you'd call it a guide, but it definitely isn't like hardcore sales. And I think that's why you and your team excel at what you do. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. Maybe talk a little bit about what it would be like for you to be in the role of a product designer today and how you would like Matt Hennessey to work with you from OrthoLite.
It's not hard. I actually worked with OrthoLite a lot as a developer, and that's sort of, I'm sure we'll get to that later, but that's definitely how I came to be where I am now. I had used the product at multiple brands. And, I think that's sort of what my strong suit is. I've worked at a number of good brands on performance and lifestyle product over the years. And I sort of bring that to this side of the table. It's very easy to preempt questions and come with solutions that the brand partner appreciates because I've sat in their chair.
Exactly. And you've always been more on the performance and technical footwear side, haven't you?
Mostly. I worked with, when I started in the business, I worked for New Balance, transitioned, did a short time in the wetsuit business for a short time, triathlon wetsuit business. And then I worked for UnderArmour and Specialized Bikes. So a diverse product, but usually very product driven and very function oriented product.
That's great. And then as you what was it that enabled you to kind of cross over? I mean, I went from journalism to agency life and we called that the dark side. Would you say it's the same for you?
Yeah. I kind of refer to it as different sides of the table. So, I sat on their side of the table for 17 years and now I'm sitting on the T2 side of the table. It's the same room, it's the same product, it's the same conversation. It's just a slightly different role. And as you mentioned, with some types of product, that can be vastly different in terms of what is required of the salesperson, right? It might be a book and helping them pick things off a menu. That's not what we do at OrthoLite. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be successful in that type of sales operation. When I came on board, CB said, this is consultative sales. And I had to look it up. I had no idea what that was. But, now I cling to that because it really is what I do. I can't sell something that I don't believe in. So, it has to be something I believe in and something that I'm very familiar with. And then it's a conversation, and that's how I sell.
I like consultative sales. That's cool. I'll put that in the show notes, everybody. We'll find that hopefully on, a definition of it somewhere, but I think that's actually a great way to describe it. So instead of asking you like about your role at OrthoLite, I'd like to ask why you joined OrthoLite. So why you decided to make that leap, but then how has the job changed since you sat in the chair first and now, because there have been just a precipitous amount of changes that have happened and continue to. So I might be jumping around a little bit, but I kind of feel like this is why not go there right now? This is really the heart of the matter. So if you could just maybe walk us through okay, I joined at this time because I believed it was time and whatever, like you want to say, but then I also really want you to talk about the evolution of that consultative role.
Sure. I joined OrthoLite almost 7 years ago, and it was a good time for me. I had moved back to New England. I was working for Sperry with the Wolverine worldwide group. And you know what? I was commuting a lot. I was spending a lot of time in the car, a lot of time in the office. And it was time to sort of make a change that was, good for me and my family. I love development so much, but it started to feel like that side of the business was getting a little bit too much minutia, right? And when the opportunity came up and I was approached by OrthoLite, they said, we want somebody who is a developer, somebody who does care about product, and we want them to go and maintain, relationships that we have with great partners in the Northeast, which is, my partner, brand partner base is a little different than everyone else's. Everybody, Olivia, Greg, Daniel, Steve, we all have slightly different focus. And my brands, a lot of them are well established. We've had partnerships with them for, in some cases, 25 years. In many cases, over 15. So, my job isn't to go out and drum up tons of new business and find the up and comers, so to speak, but it's to maintain a relationship that we've had for a long time with a great partner. And I felt like I could do that. These are people that I've worked with. In many cases, I worked at the same company with them before I came over here. So yeah, it was just very enticing opportunity, and it's the best decision I ever made by far.
So Matt, I know that things have changed a lot in the industry since you've been on board with OrthoLite, especially in the last few years through COVID. I would love to just ask, I know you're an athlete, and I know the challenge is probably something that you love to train for and strive for in terms of bringing solutions to your customers. And I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about how your approach has had to change, or maybe even talk about a few of the challenges that they're solving for as they're looking towards sustainable regulation issues or really, really serious price constraints. If you could just talk a little bit about how your consultative approach and your partnership approach continues to evolve with the needs of your customers.
Sure. I mean, my approach changes as the needs of the customer change. Obviously, I think personally, the biggest difference in the product creation side of the business over the years that I've been here is there's less travel to Asia. Designers and developers oftentimes can spend 2, 3, 4 years at a brand and never go to Asia, so they never see their product made. And when I started, it was you go to Asia 4 times a year, 2 weeks a shot. You spend a lot of time over there, and it gave up me and others like me the opportunity to see a lot of processes firsthand, see manufacturing firsthand, work with our Asia partners firsthand, as opposed to, in this time delayed 12-hour time change world that we live in. And, the fact that the current developers are not doing that, it affects their knowledge base a bit. They learn in other ways. And oftentimes I find myself being a teacher in some sense of the word. And that's part of our role. We're tasked with helping people integrate, and use our materials. And oftentimes that has to do with, technical expertise around how it's implemented in the production process. And I think that's what's changed. Obviously you mentioned regulatory and costing changes, COVID, the pandemic, all that stuff
it's a lot.
greatly affected, the bottom line for everybody. So, price is always part of the conversation. Creativity and design and development are always part of the conversation. It's just, I always viewed it when I was with the brands as a triumvirate, right? You had, product, you had marketing, you had design. So it's kind of an engineering, design, marketing, triangle. And that still exists. It's just what each of those points brings to the equation has changed. And as a salesperson, we need to be aware of that and help fill, the holes, so to speak.
Right. I love that. I love the teaching aspect of it. And there's fewer things more gratifying than like having a relationship with a customer and being able to have that like sharing of knowledge and just the trust where you can be a go-to as their business continues to shift, like on a
Sure.
monthly or quarterly basis, it seems this time. So I thought we could shift gears and talk a little bit about just some of the things that make OrthoLite unique and why you decide, why you've really dug your heels in and stayed around and really helped develop our special process and our special name in the industry. And I can't not start by asking about Glenn and John Barrett, the founder and the president, obviously. I'd love to just see if you have any fun stories to share around, maybe how they played a role in you joining the company, or maybe something that really marked a memory for you when you first started, when you got to know the two characters who lead our company.
Sure. As I understand it, when the position became available and they were brainstorming internally as to who to contact, and there were recruiters out and they weren't having a lot of success initially, my counterpart, Greg, said, what about Matt Hennessey? I worked with Greg when I was at Specialized. He was my OrthoLite contact. Loved working with him. And he sort of brought it up to the larger group and said, why aren't we talking to him? And, Pam was still here. She contacted me. CB was relatively new to the company and he got involved in the process right away. And it was cool. It was the most interesting interview I'd had because it was kind of a pitch in a way. They were trying to make me aware of what it is I would do with them. I had never done sales and kind of tell me about, OrthoLite. And I thought I knew a lot about OrthoLite at the time, but, they really kind of gave me the deep dive. And it was that honesty, I think. And that's really what kind of drew me in. After that, I had the opportunity to obviously meet Glenn and JB in both cases in Asia, which is sort of their second home. It was JB's home at the time. Mm-hmm. And I had met JB before, actually, because I had worked on a number of products with him when he was based at our China factory and really enjoyed working with him. So it was kind of like, re-meeting old friends, really. And that's what it's always been like. That's what it's like working at OrthoLite. We're all good friends.
Yeah, it really, having joined relatively recently, I love that team aspect. And I just feel like we're all pointed in the same direction. And that is to help our customers not only get through this trying time, but to help them elevate themselves with everything that we've built and the solutions that we can provide, I think, in a unique way in terms of the vertical integration and all of the innovation that's happening around materials and sustainability. But there's a lot of news for us to bring to our customers. And I know there's a lot of newcomers out there who you're meeting with these days. And a lot of, we're excited that a lot of our customers are coming to see our factories. We're super proud of those. And I guess I just am curious if you could share, I don't know how much you're traveling these days. You mentioned you're not going over to Asia as much, but I know travel is a really important part of this. And when I was interviewing Marty recently, our sales leader here, Marty Greenwald, he was talking about how excited he was to get back out there For him, it's trade shows, it's visiting customers, it's just that face time. I mean, do you kind of fall in the same camp?
For sure. And, in many ways, I think we are climbing back to where we were before. The material shows are back, some of the, although the power dynamics have shifted a little bit with some of the big shows, there are still great shows for customers to go to and for us to go to speak to them and have access to them. I'm excited to go back to Asia. It's been 3 years now since I've been to Asia, and that's by far the longest amount of time I've been away from Asia in my entire career. So,
wow.
After this many years, it's, you come to miss it. So this spring, I'll definitely be headed back, probably to Vietnam, and, reconnect with our team there. And, I time it when my customers go there. So I have the opportunity to show them our factories, our, recycling, our sales team, everything that we have over there. I can show them, we can work on product. And that's the most important thing. That's how I got to know OrthoLite. That's how I know John. We met at his factory, and we were able to have dinner and get to know each other. That's how it works.
I totally agree with you, and I'm very excited to hear that you're going back there. I'm also excited to hear, after you return, maybe some of the different questions that were asked while you were on the ground there with your customers, and maybe you can even anticipate a few of those. I know that you always build in fun and time to build a relationship, but I have to ask if you are anticipating any different types of problem solving as you're going to Asia this coming spring.
Sure. Obviously we're going to get direct, product questions, process questions. How do you do this? Can we see it done? And, those are easy, but also exciting questions to answer, because we can give them a tour. We can show them how we're best in class in terms of our factory cleanliness, the workers that have been there for, twice as long as I've been here, which is super rare in Asia. It's fun to show them how we do the process. And we set aside enough time to be able to work on their individual programs or talk about future programs. But most importantly, to me, we set aside time to just show them processing, show them how we do things, how we recycle, how we grind, how we make hybrid. Those are the things that they're interested in, with sustainability being so much more important than it was at the beginning of my career. That's what they want to see. And a lot of that's greenwashed, I think, in this industry. So to be able to show them so that they can see it with their own eyes is important.
I'm so glad you brought that up, not only as a marketing professional, but someone who's relatively new to footwear, because I came to OrthoLite with more of an outdoor and an active lifestyle background. But I've always had footwear on the roster or the place I used to call home for work. And I definitely have to say, this industry, the footwear industry, is either you're in footwear or you're like, kind of in the periphery around it. And those of you who have been in it are a really special breed. And I think that you really work hard to make the whole thing better. And I feel like we have a great opportunity at OrthoLite because we work with so many brands. We own, our own vertical manufacturing. Like we can really be a great resource for supply chain navigation.
Yeah.
And just like enabling our customers to understand how it's all changing firsthand. Like, hey, pull up a chair. Like I can take you through all this in person, no matter like what country we manufacture out of. So I think that's a really, really great opportunity. And I'm so glad to hear that you get to actually go back and like be on the ground with your customers at one of our premier factories in Vietnam. That's super exciting. But again, knowing that you've been in footwear for some time, you mentioned sustainability. Can you name maybe one or two things that you're really seeing change about the footwear industry today?
Just the willingness to adopt and the understanding on a brand level now that the consumer genuinely wants more sustainable product. I've worked on some great sustainable programs, a lot of them in the past on the development side, on the brand side. And, it was always more of a showcase, right? Well, this is what can be done, or this is what could be done. Isn't this cool that we, used all these recycled products or whatnot in a finished good? And, who knows what the overall volume of that went. I think the big change is that, those solutions are being implemented in volume now. And, we're a large part of each shoe, right? I mean, the insole is a big piece. Back in the day, it was, if you need to save money, you just cut the insole out, right, and add a cheaper one. And that's something that we've had to fight for a long time. And I think we've done well to prove the point that comfort wins. It's a large piece. Don't use cheap materials that you don't know where they come from. Use materials that we can tell you exactly where they've come from and certified, and that's important.
Super important. And I know for someone with the integrity that you have to show up and serve your customers, like that's something that is literally a non-starter. It's not something we could ever compromise. And all of your people that you work with on the sales team are wired the same way, which I think is a big part of the reason how we maintain this high level of integrity. So I just also want to applaud you for not ever lowering the bar, Matt Hennessey.
I try not, there are plenty of places that, brands can go to get cheap, affordable stuff. And, there's a place for that. If we're going to sit here and talk about product, and ignore the fact that there are really cost challenged, items, that would be lying. But, when I go to a customer, I'm saying, hey, you may not know that I can actually get you to a price point that you need to be at. You might think that we're too premium, so that's the kind of conversation we have to have, and showing them how things are made when they've seen it made in a cheap factory that's not clean, that doesn't have everything set up the way it's supposed to. The comparison when you come into one of our facilities is massive. So I'd rather they walk out and say, wow, that's the cleanest, most efficient factory I've ever seen. We can't afford that, but wow, and I'm fine with that. But I'll always push for, us to get that spot, to get that landed.
Absolutely. And I feel it's really important that with the evolution and the way that we're trying to pioneer innovation constantly, it's not all like world changing, like, oh, the earth's going to turn a different way on its axis when we introduce this product. We're actually making incremental changes to products to make it more obtainable. That's Glenn's vision for the company, is to really democratize sustainability and the best materials for all of our brand partners. And I feel like that's something that is also really sped up through the pandemic, which I've heard a lot of people call like just the quickest clip of change in business that's happened in our careers, for sure. And it continues to just charge forward with interesting different headwinds. But I love that we're not turning off the innovation engine on all levels for you all to be able to serve our customers. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in with our lightning round, which is a really fun, give the answer from the gut as soon as you hear the question. And then we'll wrap up with just kind of more of a deep thought question before we say goodbye for today. So are you ready?
I am.
Okay. What do you like to do when you're not working at OrthoLite?
Definitely outdoors guy. Cycling is a passion of mine, and a relatively new passion, but one that I've spent a fair amount of time on recently is making live edge furniture.
Oh, that's so cool. What superpower do you wish you had?
I think flight would be pretty cool, to be able to fly. As an adventure guy myself, cut out the middleman on that.
I love it. And that leads me really nicely to the next one. Are you a night owl or an early bird?
I am not an early bird. Night owl for sure.
I actually would have pegged you for the opposite. And pretty much everybody else on your team is an early bird.
Yeah, I'm not a coffee guy, so it doesn't work.
That explains it. And also to have you be a cyclist and not a coffee guy, that's also very unique.
Also rare.
Yes. Okay. And what is your favorite drink at the bar, or your favorite thing to eat when you're out with your clients or teammates?
I'm a whiskey taster for sure. I used to be a beer guy, but can't do that anymore. So made that transition a few years back. Absolutely love trying new whiskeys, scotches, that type of thing. And then I love food. I'm not going to turn down a good steak or maybe something slow cooked like short rib or barbecue.
Awesome. And then what is your favorite part of your job at OrthoLite?
The people, working with a wide variety of people in my business. I liked being at the brands, but it's always a little insulated when you're at the brand. Oh, you can't talk to those guys. They're, the competition or whatnot. Now I get to work with everybody. And I prefer that.
That's awesome. I like that too. Okay. So here's the deep thought, Matt. So what is the most constructive, maybe insight or character definer that you've learned throughout your life and career that you would tell the 25-year-old Matt Hennessey?
I think it's be open to change. Plan for it where you can, as best you can. But embrace it when it happens, and don't worry about things that you don't have control over.
That's actually very simple and very poignant. So thank you so much. I really think that's a perfect way to wrap up our conversation, and there will be more to come. I'm hoping later this year, we'll be able to do another touch base together where we could talk about kind of how the year's gone and what it was like for you to re-entry of sorts back into Asia. I'm really excited to hear how that trip goes. And I know you're really looking forward to it. So it'll be great to hear about that. And I just want to tell you, it's great that we got to spend this time here today. Thank you so much for your time.
No, it was fun. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much.